Welcome back, Focus learners. Let's dive right into today's explainer, where we're going to dissect the true, real-world meaning of business ethics. We're not just going to talk about checking boxes or following the rules. We are going to break down the mechanics of integrity, figure out how to spot misconduct in the wild, and explore why fairness is the absolute ultimate currency in any professional environment. So here's a thought. If it's legal, does that automatically mean it's ethical? It's kind of a provocative question, right? We so often operate under this common assumption that simply following the laws on the books is enough to make a business fundamentally good. But today, we're going to challenge that assumption head-on and look at why stopping at mere compliance is actually a massive risk to any organization. Here is our roadmap for this explainer. First, we'll cover defining business ethics, then spotting an ethical issue. From there, we'll move into recognizing unethical conduct, followed by the role of justice, and finally, the expectation of fairness. All right, let's jump right into Section 1, defining business ethics. So, officially, business ethics refers to a defined set of moral standards. We use these standards to evaluate whether a specific course of action or decision is right or wrong in a professional context. But here's what you really need to take away. This isn't just some motivational poster hanging in the HR department. It literally applies to every single function of a company. We're talking procurement, sales, human resources, right up to the corporate governance happening in the boardroom. You know, there is a really sharp, distinct contrast between legal compliance and ethical conduct. Legal compliance? Well, that's just following the laws. It's basically the bare minimum required to keep you out of court. But ethical conduct? That's the good stuff. That represents the core values and the integrity that actually underpins sound business practices and build a long-term organizational reputation. Doing what is strictly legal is absolutely not the same thing as doing what builds genuine trust. Moving smoothly onto Section 2, spotting an ethical issue. An ethical issue pops up the exact moment you or your organization has to choose between a set of possible actions, especially when some of those options might not be ethically sound. Now, that sounds super simple, right? But the capacity to identify these situations in real time is a foundational competency for literally every employee. It's the core awareness that empowers you to prevent misconduct before it even happens. Because let's be real, you can't fix a problem if you don't even realize it's happening. Okay, Section 3, recognizing unethical conduct. To make this super easy to digest, we can break unethical business conduct down into 3 main categories. We've got misappropriation of property, misrepresentation and dishonesty, and creating false impressions. This gives us a really practical, clear-cut framework for identifying behavior that just falls below accepted professional norms. Let's unpack each one of these. First up is misappropriation. Basically, this is the unauthorized use of someone else's property, or acquiring it under false pretenses. And sure, that might sound like grand corporate theft, but it's often incredibly mundane. We're talking about using the office posted meter for your private mail, or maybe slightly inflating those travel expense claims. Our source material is crystal clear on this. No misappropriation should ever be brushed off as trivial. Why? Because regardless of the scale, every single instance is a direct violation of professional trust. Second, we have misrepresentation and dishonesty. This means making statements you absolutely know to be false. Maybe someone incorrectly blames a colleague for a failed project just to save their own skin. Or maybe they provide a completely distorted account of a conversation to manipulate a deal. Whatever the reason, this completely shatters the fundamental obligation we all have for honesty and accuracy in our professional communications. And I am willing to bet many of you have heard this exact dangerous justification before. Oh, well, this is just standard practice in our organization. We need to aggressively debunk that right now. Using some toxic cultural norm to justify misrepresentation does absolutely nothing to diminish how serious the conduct is. Just because everyone else is doing it doesn't miraculously make it ethical. It just means the entire culture is broken. The third category is creating false impressions. This one is absolutely crucial because ethics isn't just about avoiding blatant, outright lies. It's also about making sure you don't intentionally let someone reach the wrong conclusion. Think of a car dealer who conveniently withholds material information, like the car being in a major prior accident from a prospective buyer, or a sales rep who knowingly lets a customer assume a product can do something it actually can't. If you let someone believe an illusion just to secure a deal, you've committed an ethical violation. You have a clear obligation to ensure the impressions you create are accurate and not misleading. Let's shift gears to Section 4, the role of justice.
So, how exactly do we define justice in a business context? Well, it's the adherence to the standards of fairness that are recognized and upheld by society. And we're not merely talking about legal constraints here. We are talking about a deeply ingrained human expectation. Think about it. Employees expect fair compensation. Students expect fair assessment. Citizens expect fair governance. Justice is literally the yardstick we use to measure all of it.
Now, there is a really common misunderstanding we need to clear up regarding equitable distribution versus identical distribution. True justice in contemporary business means the equitable distribution of both obligations and rewards. That means things are allocated based on a commonly accepted standard of fairness. It does not mean everyone gets the exact identical thing. And here's a critical nuance. What constitutes a just outcome can vary widely across different societies and cultural contexts. If you're an organization operating in international markets, grasping that distinction is an absolute must.
And that brings us to Section 5, the expectation of fairness.
When businesses fail to meet this expectation of fair treatment, whether that's through discriminatory practices, totally opaque decision-making, or inequitable reward structures, the fallout is severe. It's not just a philosophical problem. It's intensely practical. You're going to see massive employee disengagement, devastating reputational damage, and eventually very real legal liability. When fairness goes out the window, confidence in the organization and its leadership completely erodes. It hits the bottom line hard. So if you take away just one crucial point from this entire explainer, make it this. A commitment to justice in business is not merely an ethical aspiration. It is a strict, practical requirement for sustaining employee trust, customer confidence, and long-term organizational performance. Ethics and fairness aren't just nice-to-haves. They are absolute, non-negotiable requirements for your organization's long-term survival. I want to leave you with this final, somewhat provocative thought. Does your organization's culture reflect true ethical justice, or are you all just skating by on legal compliance? Take a really hard look at your workplace tomorrow. Watch how decisions get made, how resources are distributed, and how everyday conversations are handled. Challenge yourself to move beyond the bare minimum and strive for true integrity. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you in the next one.